Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another episode of Jacob Walks Over a Bridge. I'm Jacob, currently walking over a bridge, and it's days like today that make me miss when once upon a time I used to live in a real neighborhood. Or I guess I should clarify, a real residential neighborhood. I live in Hell's Kitchen now just by the skin of my teeth. If I was on the other side of 8th Avenue, I would be in Times Square. And, I was about to say there's nothing wrong with Times Square, but I think you and I can both agree that Times Square is lacking in some neighborly charm. There's the local bodega is replaced with the local New York souvenir stand. It's not really the place where people go to, settle down and live a nice quiet life. Anything but. I've really gotten used to the hustle bustle and the noise and all that go into living where I do, and there are times of quiet. I'm in my apartment. Thankfully, since I'm near the back of my building, I'm insulated from most of the noise, save for when you see folks who are riding their bikes and trying to make noise just to make noise. Still hear that, and if someone's screaming, of course I'm going to hear it. But for the most part, the apartment's quiet anyway, but outside, and I guess it's living in the city, so to speak. I'm used to bobbing and weaving through tourists and just getting upset at when people walk four abreast and you have to walk into the bike lane to walk around a slow-moving group of people, and it's tough. But then on a day like today, when I'm doing a classic 3-borough tour. Started in Manhattan, walked to Brooklyn, then through Brooklyn over the Pulaski Bridge, which I'm walking over now, to Queens, and then back home to Manhattan. And I don't walk through these sorts of neighborhoods now very often, but I'm walking through just the middle of nowhere Brooklyn. Walking through Brooklyn Heights or Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg, wherever, Greenpoint. It's almost amazing that things could be that quiet. You forget that people do live in places where you're not just one block away from the big Krispy Kreme store, the big M&M store. It's kind of sad in a way that I have this sort of reaction when I go someplace where I remember when I was staying with my ex, and I'd stay the night, and I'd just be amazed at just how quiet things were. It felt like going back home to the suburbs and staying there. So on a day like today, I guess I just have helps me have an appreciation for that. And if I had my choice, I don't know if I'd be necessarily living where I am now. Where I am now mostly due to a variety of reasons, which I'm sure I've detailed before, but familial obligations and what I could afford versus what I want to live, or what kind of space I want to live in, and everything kind of aligned for the apartment I'm in now. So it was not my first choice, but certainly was one of my only options when it came to trying to check off as many boxes as possible. I also feel fortunate that where I live now checks off so many of the boxes that I wanted to check off. But there are times where walking through just a nice quiet neighborhood just makes me think, what if I had taken that apartment in March 2021 to in the middle of Carroll Gardens, or if I had stayed in Astoria, or if I had said, screw you obligations, and just went out to the middle of nowhere. Ridgewood seems nice for the people, people who live there like it. But there's something to be said about a real neighborhood and a place where, because I could walk around Hell's Kitchen and it's not a very big neighborhood, and even when this is kind of the same when I lived on the Upper West Side in a way where, well, to a lesser degree than Hell's Kitchen where I am now, which is just tourist central. Because not only do you get the people mingling around from Times Square area, but you also get all of the pre and post theater crowd who come to eat in Hell's Kitchen before a show, and that has, to be fair, created a nice bustling restaurant scene, which I do appreciate to a point. Haven't been able to try all the restaurants yet, but one of these days I'll get around to it. But then you also have a big gay scene. The LGBTQ plus community is well represented, and that includes a bunch of clubby bar areas, and I think there's even one that's right around the corner from me. Oh, am I already? It's one of those bridges where it just, surprises you. So all of a sudden I guess I just was talking and I wasn't really paying attention. So you cross the creek and all of a sudden you're in Queens. I'm yawning. I'll edit that out in post. As if. So now, though, the question is, when I do get my offer from the real estate company, the landlord that I rent from, will I renew? And I'd hope so, if only because A, I'm a little tired of moving, and B, the market has not cooled off by any stretch like I had hoped it would. So here's hoping that I get some sort of decent offer to stay. I would like to stay. If not, though, the question is, where do I go? And it's gonna take a lot of thinking and ruminating, and a likely destination's back to the Upper East Side, where friends and soon family will be living. Could always go back to Queens. Could also hop to a new neighborhood. So far I've been 5 for 5 and living in different neighborhoods. I haven't repeated a neighborhood once. So I could maybe try Fi-Dye or actually move to Brooklyn. I always thought I was going to live in Brooklyn. That's, before moving to this city, that was the place, it seemed, for all the young folks, the millennials. Not necessarily the hipster Williamsburg necessarily, but just seemed like if you were young living in the city, you moved to Brooklyn. Hasn't happened for me yet, but I'm still young. There are times I feel like I'm wasting my life away, but it's also nice to know that there are many years left ahead of me. I always have to remind myself. I'm just hanging around with too many old farts. I need more young friends. Yawning again, sorry. I'll also take this out later. Psych. It has been a while. I don't know. I guess now that walking isn't the only thing to do anymore, and not walking over a bridge to commute, there's less incentive to do these walks. So It's been a while, relatively, since I've done a good walk like this, and I'll try to get out more and explore. It's not, it's always fun to see new things. I hope to maybe end the year with a nice overseas trip, but that remains to be seen. Got to figure out what I'm doing living-wise first. Everyone's got to figure out what they're doing living-wise first. It seems like everyone's in flux. But I'm near the end of the bridge, and as is customary for when that happens, I will sign off. It's been real, as always, and I look forward to our next conversation. Good day, and good night.